This is Doug Green, and I'm the publisher of Telecom Reseller. And today I'm with Michael Schachter, who's the Director of Product Marketing at Allot. Michael, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Douglas. It's nice to be here.
Well, we're going to be talking about a topic that I think is really important. We're going to be talking about our CSP readers. We're going to be talking about cybersecurity, and we're going to be talking about maybe delivering a very needed service through the network people already have, which is really interesting. But Michael, first, what is Allot?
Okay. I think the easiest way to explain what Allot is to look at our tagline over my shoulder. See, control, secure, right? So for a little over 20 years, Allot has been specializing in um, carrier grade solutions for service providers, for CSPs, ISPs, operators of all kind, based on proprietary DPI capabilities to really look deeply into network traffic and identify and see um, what's going on in the network. And that's, you know, all aspects of what's web browsing is happening and what kind, what rates of flow and delays and applications and services. um, and we can provide all kinds of actionable intelligence to the service provider, but it goes beyond just seeing what's there. It also helps them kind of shape and manage the traffic to make sure that sensitive applications and services are getting the required bandwidth. It can be extended to securing the traffic, controlling the bandwidth, the relative bandwidth that different services use up, making sure people get the quality of service and the quality of experience that they've signed up for. And I guess in terms of the context of today's discussion, I talked about see and control. We also have been securing carrier networks by identifying and blocking DDoS and lately botnet traffic. And a little more than 5 years ago, we decided that we could take these capabilities and apply them to cybersecurity. Because we know how to see what's in the network, we can also see what kinds of threats are in the network, be it viruses traveling in the network, be it attempts, phishing and ransomware attacks, trying to get you to browse to an unsafe URL or web page that was hijacked or taken over or copied to make look like a legitimate traffic, and keep you off of that, so we can secure the network and through that the end user. But now what we've added to that is the ability to really secure the mass market of the service provider's customer base by putting in the network the kinds of cybersecurity filters that actually block the threats before they reach the end user. So that's a lot in a nutshell.
Well, so let's start with that, with what you just said, because that's, I think, the big headline here is you are you're doing this a little bit different than everyone else. You're actually using the network to detect the problem.
So we're detecting the problem in the network, and the analogy that we like to draw, and I think it makes it very clear and understandable. Um, Broadband connectivity has become a utility, for everybody, right? It's an expectation. It's there, just like water is there, right? When you go into your kitchen or your bathroom and you turn on the tap, you expect water to come out. But not only that, you expect clean, safe water to come out. The water company is supposed to take care of delivering and making sure that there's adequate pressure, but making sure that it's clean. And we believe that service providers can and should provide that extra value service to their end users. End users should expect that the data that they get is clean, that the websites that they are browsing to are safe. And we believe that service providers, because they own the pipes, are uniquely situated to provide this extra service. And so what we have done is develop software capability to do that filtering, to do that cleaning, to do that protecting through the network. And so it takes away the burden from the end user.
Now, to validate this approach, you guys went out and did a survey.
So we've done a number of surveys over the last couple of years, and the most recent survey that you're talking about, um, we hired a research company to do an anonymous survey on our behalf, and they talked to 1,000 SMBs, which were defined as excuse me, which were defined as smaller than 50 person shops, and weighted toward the smaller end of that, so 5, 10 people, and to see what their cybersecurity posture is. You know, are they worried? Are they aware of threats? How do they handle threats? Who is responsible for their security? And what do they think about this proposition of having the service provider be the responsible adult in the room? And yeah, the results were quite interesting.
Now, it sounds to me like what I'm hearing is that, cybersecurity and also let's just say larger than that, the way that small businesses are now using the network exceeds maybe their understanding of the vulnerabilities that they're developing for themselves. So that
Yeah.
and you're saying with the water analogy, that's to be expected.
It's to be expected, when you think of small businesses, it could be, the doctor's office that you go to, or the
Hmm.
lawyer, or the pastry chef, or any kind of small business. Usually there's somebody there who's an expert in their business, and usually they're not cybersecurity experts. Just like most of us are not cybersecurity experts, and yet we're all connected all the time from wherever we are, and we're kind of hoping that we're not the next headline about somebody getting, phished
Right,
or hit with ransomware or viruses. If it happens to me at home, so I can't browse for a day or two or whatever. But if it happens to a small business, it could shut them down, and the costs of recovering can put them out of business. And typically, they don't have the personnel. They can't afford to hold on to
right.
a dedicated security expert, and so they're worried. They're aware of the threats. They're not sure, which solution is right for them, and they're not sure, if they can afford, the bigger solutions. They're vulnerable. They know they're vulnerable, and they're worried.
So, let's sort of walk through maybe an example because you mentioned, when we say small business, there's so many different images, but you gave us some hard examples. So, I'm an accountant and I'm just a small practice, maybe one or two people. My clients are uploading documents, for example. They're
Yeah.
sending me different statements. They're sending me copies of credit card bills. They may be
Hmm.
sharing information like social security numbers and so on, and they're using services as we all do on the online and so on. And you're saying this is an example of maybe a point of vulnerability that
So this is a very vulnerable office, because typically they're going to have, some kind of a small router,
right.
and a little office network that the different, PCs and laptops are attached to. And they might have a few other devices, like a smart doorbell, or one of these voice activated assistants from companies like Amazon or Apple or whomever. They may have a smart thermostat, smart light bulbs, or what have you. And one of the things this survey uncovered was that only about a third of the surveyed small business owners um, self-reported having actually installed endpoint solutions
Hmm.
on all of their devices. So that means 2/3 haven't, right? And when they say all of their devices, they're talking about their laptops and their mobile phones, and they don't even realize that their smart doorbell and smart thermostat, what we call IoT, right, the Internet of Things, and they all have 2 or 3 or 5, and it's growing every year, um, devices on their network. And these devices, by definition, are not very secure, and you can't install endpoint security on them. And they typically have, the out of the box 1 2 3 4 5 password. And so all of these are points of vulnerability, and people are hacking, and they're port scanning, and they're getting into these devices, um, and oftentimes people are completely unaware of it. So they may be losing data, they may be having valuable information stolen from them, and they might be browsing onto a ransomware site, a phishing site that grabs their credentials or grabs their customers' data, and they can be put out of business, very easily, and they're aware of it. They don't know what to do.
So, Michael, earlier when we were talking about our podcast today, you kind of mentioned that a lot of companies don't necessarily buy the stuff that they need on their own. That people that had run out there and tried to sell security services that they probably need had struggled with the pickup. You mentioned 4 or 5% maybe actually bought these services, and that may have inspired you guys to look at another way to sell it.
Yeah, so that's absolutely the case. The 4 or 5%, I was talking specifically about when service providers have been trying to market endpoint, the Nortons and McAfees and so on of the world as a service. And I think most of us who have contracts with service providers have gotten those kinds of offers.
Right.
And what we have found is that a 5% pickup rate is a good success story. Um, and other people are perhaps using free antiviruses. Um, but as I said, from the survey, we saw that only a third of small businesses who have an added incentive are managing to actually install these kinds of solutions on all of their devices. And the statistics of 4 to 5%, I think, is even an optimistic number because that's 4 to 5% contracts that were sold. Did the users actually install the endpoint on their systems? And did they install them? And then did they update them? Did they properly configure them? Or did they kind of give up after a month or two, which I think is, what most of us experience. And so, yes, that showed us that there's a gap. People are not securing their systems, individual consumers like ourselves. But as I said, it's more of a problem if there's a business that's depending on the security and the ongoing connectivity to run their business, because everybody, and it's become even more accentuated over the last couple of years with Corona, the work from home and the work from small offices is just a fact of life, and people bring in their own devices, and so the network is what's always a point of, you know, egress, right? That's the connectivity point. That's where all of your devices, whatever they may be, meet the data. And so if the data can be clean and safe in the pipe, and if the dangerous websites can be blocked in the pipe, by the pipe, then we've actually solved the problem for everybody, because it's not, it scales to, millions of customers. And so the CSP does not need to charge a lot of money. So the small businesses can afford the security. And the beauty of it is if they don't want to configure anything, they're protected just by saying, yes, give me this service, I'll pay for it, or I'll accept it free, however it's bundled by the service provider. Once it's just instantly provisioned, the defaults go into effect. And if that's good enough for you, you don't have to do anything ever again to have cybersecurity on your data. So it's just the most simple solution.
And Michael, to your water analogy point earlier, I doubt that very few of us, I mean, there are things you can go out on Amazon, buy a kit, I guess, to test the water every morning if you want to. But
Right.
I bet that most people, unless they live in certain localities, just sort of assume the water coming out of the tap is okay, and
Yeah,
they don't
I
even think
remember when
about
I
it.
when I lived in New York, they did a survey of New York tap water compared to the famous leading bottled brands, and it was cleaner and it
It was
tasted
better.
better, and nobody had to do anything, and nobody had to spend exorbitant money and hire consultants and managed service providers to get that good, upstate New York water in the city. So yeah, it's a perfect analogy.
So, let's put this together as small businesses, just like everyone else, move to services that they're consuming as a service, monthly subscription fees and so on. That's sort of the whole idea, isn't it? It's sort of like, well, I have this service, I don't even think about it, I just use it.
Yeah, it's absolutely like that. The service provider, can choose to charge, can choose to bundle it in for premium services and kind of hide the cost. But what we saw in this survey was that, 73% of the small businesses believe it is the responsibility of the service provider to deliver safe, clean data. 70% are looking to them, to give that service, and they're willing to pay for it. We saw averages of, 5, 6, high $7 a month, and if you multiply that out by, hundreds of thousands, millions of end users, it becomes, a nice business stream for the service provider, an affordable solution for the end user, and almost more importantly, just what you talked about, peace of mind. You don't have to you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to look for solutions. You don't have to weigh the different options, and you just sign up for the service, and you're protected. So it seems like really a win-win-win all around.
So for our CSP readers, this is already sounding like an easy sell in that it's already what your customers are expecting from you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we definitely saw that. We asked that specific question, and like I said, 70% said it's their responsibility, and 73% said they would like it to be part of the core offering. Um, and they're all expecting to get hit by some kind of attack. They see it happening, they read the news, they understand that the world has become increasingly cyber unsecure. Um, and yeah, it's something that the customers are looking for. So it's for your service provider audience, it seems like you know, a no-brainer.
So you we talked a little bit just now about the edge, and as we all know, the explosion of hybrid work is not just limited to the large enterprise. It includes some of the smaller types of business, the doctor's office, the accountant office, and so on. A lot of these organizations have hybrid work also.
Yeah.
So, we at TR have been doing a lot of podcasts on SD-WAN, on SASE, and so on, and other issues that involve edge. What's that? What is that? How does this roll out for you guys here with the SMB market?
Right. So there are a number of different edges. As I mentioned earlier, for the small businesses and even for the home network users, you've got your router, which is kind of your edge point vis-a-vis the service provider network. And so we've got a solution that can be purely in the pipe, or it can be in the pipe with a little agent that goes onto your router. It's installed through the pipe, so you don't have to do anything about that either. And that added piece also hardens the router, makes sure that a good password is in use, um, warns about DNS, finagling and subversion, and is also able to see the individual devices on the home or business network, and make sure none of them are misbehaving, suddenly connecting to you know unknown new addresses out in the wild, which could indicate that a smart doorbell has been infected and subverted. So that's an edge. But by being in the data, in the data pipe itself, we also see all the traffic to all the different internet sites that your users might be using. And if your users are also using their mobile devices out and about through the service provider network, then they're also protected when they're not in the small office but are doing work on their mobiles or their laptops through the same uh, pipe network native, filter that's in the pipes. So wherever they're drinking their water, as it were, um, the pipe is clean.
So, Michael, as we look into 2023, it's just around the corner. What's your big message for our CSP readership?
So our big message is that the threat landscape is only going to grow. 5G is going to make it even more complicated. But at the end of the day, you guys own the pipe. you've already got a contractual relationship with your SMB customers and with, for that matter, your mass market consumers. Um, if you can make the pipe safe and secure for them, um, you know, you will make them happier. You will enhance your brand. You will differentiate yourself from the competition. You will, if you so choose, have a new revenue stream that can be, millions upon millions because you've got that many customers out there. And if they're all willing to pay, or if half of them are willing to pay, and we've seen adoption rates of 50%, a few dollars a month on top of their existing service plan, you multiply it out, you do the math. It's just it's a gimme. I mean,
It all
the
kind of
world
makes
needs
sense.
the world needs safe data, right? The world needs safe data, and you guys are in the perfect spot um, to provide it, to make money off of it, to enhance your brand reputation from it. It just seems like a perfect opportunity for you guys to grab.
Well, Michael, I really want to thank you for joining us today. This has been very enlightening, very interesting podcast, and I've enjoyed learning a little bit about a different approach to an issue that so many of our readers face or face on behalf of their customers. Sounds like a great opportunity too. Where can we learn more about Allot?
Well, we've got, our website is very easy, allot.com. And you can go in there and click on security if that's what you're interested in from our discussion today. And then you can find all about our products, our solutions, some of our success stories. We've got, periodic webinars and blog posts. So we've got a lot of information out there. Um, you can ask to be contacted by a sales representative. We've got North American offices. In fact, if I can throw in a plug here, we just
Go
announced
ahead.
an exciting SMB win recently with Verizon in the United States. They're going to be using this solution for parts of their SMB customer base. So that's a great validation point for us. And yeah, the website's there. You can get in touch. You can download webinars that we've done. We just put up the TST report, the telecom security trends on this very survey, so you can read more about the questions we asked and the answers we got. And be happy to talk to you, explain in greater depths. Please get in touch.
Well, Michael, I'm looking forward to our next podcast where we get to learn more about how this is happening, what's going on out there. But for now, thank you very much indeed for joining us today.
Okay, well, thank you, Doug. I enjoyed having a chance to put the message out there, and I hope your readership found it interesting, and be great if there's some follow-up.